Hey everybody, I'm Canadian Operator. This is Tito, and of course, this is the TAC A1. Tito seems to be a pretty big fan. I just wanted to get something out of the way before we start the video here on the review, and that's just an apology, a sincere, heartfelt apology to all of you for taking so long to get this video done. There was a lot of stuff getting in the way between, family, Christmas, just a bit of drama during the holidays, a bathroom renovation, and actually a whole day spent shooting this video and doing it from scratch, just because it wasn't up to the production quality that I set out for myself. So I'm very sorry that's taken so long. I know a lot of you have been waiting extremely patiently, so please don't allow me to keep you waiting any longer. And let's go ahead and get started. Just so you know, there's going to be a couple of announcements at the end of the video, so if you'd like to stick around until the end, I'd appreciate it, and you might find them quite interesting, to say the least. So let's go ahead and get started with the review of the TIKKA T3X TAC A1. All right, fellas, before we go from the muzzle brake here all the way to the buttstock, as we always do in my review videos, let's just talk very, very briefly about the types of options that you have with this firearm, because you do have a number of options. The first of which is going to be caliber. So the most common calibers this will be available in will be 223 Remington, which is actually a really great fast little cartridge, just a little bigger than 22, but it'll really get out there at about 3,300 feet per second. I know because I did a little bit of digging on these guys. Now the 308 is a little slower, and this is the one that we have here. It's obviously quite a bigger cartridge at 30 caliber, but that'll get out there at about 2,700 feet per second. And then I'm not 100% sure about the speed on the 6.5 Creedmoor. If you have an idea, let me know below. But that is the other cartridge that this is available to be chambered in. So those are the main three. Now there is also like 270 Win, and I think they had a couple of others that are not super commonly found in Canada, at least not that I could find from the research that I've done. So those are going to be your main options that are going to be the most available: your 223, your 308, and your 6.5 Creedmoor. You're going to have a couple of color choices here as well. You can get it completely blacked out with a nice black anodized finish on the receiver and the forend here, and then a nice gunmetal finish on the barrel and so on. However, I went with the Coyote Brown here because I just absolutely love this colorway. It's got this amazing sort of, it's almost like an FDE on the forend here, on the bottom end of the receiver, so the lower, essentially, the top of the receiver, and the barrel is that gunmetal again. And we've got a nice black sort of contrast here on the buttstock with the cheek riser and the butt pad and the length of pull adjustment here as well with the little plates, which we'll get to in a minute. So just an amazing, amazing color combination here, in my opinion. It's very similar looking to my Tavor, which if you haven't seen the video, I'll link it up there. One of my favorite guns of all time, and that one's an FDE, so a little bit lighter than this one. But yeah, we've got the FDE Magpul M-Lock tripod here, or bipod rather, which I also did a review on, so I'll put a link there if you want to go check that out. But yeah, those are your two options for color. We talked about caliber, and then the next thing is we have a selection of barrels as well, so you can choose between a 20-inch and a 24-inch barrel. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that same choice is available on all calibers of this firearm. However, I know on the 308 that's definitely an option, and trust me, those extra 4 inches really do make a big difference. Giggity. Okay, so let's start talking about the front end of this thing and work all the way to the back. And of course, we do want to make sure before we do that our firearm is nice and clear. So we've got a nice clear magazine there, which we'll talk about in a minute, and the ever so smooth T3X action, because my God, that's just amazing. The bolt is a big part of that, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later, so do make sure to stay tuned for that. Right, so the muzzle brake, let's get to it. All right, fellas, so let's go ahead and get started up front here with our muzzle brake. We do get a muzzle brake on this firearm, which is really great. This is a nice 3-prong muzzle brake, so you've got lots of space right here for gases to escape both to the right and to the left side. And that has a demonstrable effect on not just muzzle rise, if you happen to be John Ramboing this thing in your shoulder, just carrying it around with you, but also, of course, the felt recoil, which there's a number of different features of this firearm that help to reduce that and make it actually incredibly comfortable to shoot. That being said, sorry about the noise outside. That being said, this will definitely reduce that felt recoil quite a bit at the cost of potentially making the people shooting to your left and to your right a little little bit upset because they're going to feel like a mini nuke is going off every time you shoot, which is actually kind of cool. This thing produces one hell of a shockwave. It's just so much fun. Even if you're not shooting it, you're just standing beside it, you know somebody's shooting a T3X TAC A1 when this thing goes off. It's actually pretty amazing. But this thing gets on there pretty easily. It's a fairly common thread. I think it's 1/2 inch 28. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to put that in the description, and we're going to go fish that out from the spec sheet and put that in there. But this, once you've got it centered, it's very easy. You've got a little hex key there. You should be able to just tighten that down very easily with a hex key. That, of course, does come with your firearm, and that is just going to hold it in place. Now, there is a little set screw up here as well. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the set screw is for, because it doesn't actually seem to do anything on this particular model. But I have a feeling that this is a bit of a universal make in terms of, you know, they made it a bit bigger. They made it in 338 Lapua because SACO, of course, being the parent company of TIKKA, does have other firearms that are chambered in 338. So, of course, having something that can work for 338, 308, and then, of course, 6.5, which it works for all of those, it's probably going to reduce those manufacturing costs a little bit, and probably a little bit of time savings on top of that. So that makes sense. And if you really wanted to, you could take this off and you could go and get a specific 308 muzzle brake. To be honest though, this thing does the job and you really don't need to do that. We're going to go ahead and move on to the barrel next. The barrel here, this one is a 24 inch. You do have a choice of 20 inch as well, at least in the 308. Again, not 100% sure about the other chamberings, if that's a word, it is now. But you do have an option for those two, so I went with the 24 inch. That's going to allow you to get a little tiny bit further out. It's probably not going to be noticeable for you, to be honest, if you're only shooting 100, 200 meters or something like that, but you are going to notice it quite a bit if you're getting out further than that, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 meters, a kilometer, which the 308 can comfortably do in the right conditions, and potentially even more than that. So yeah, 308, it's an oldie but a goodie. But you've got a 1 in 11 twist in here, which is really nice. It's not too aggressive, which means it's going to be able to handle lighter ammo a little bit more easily. You could put heavier ammo in there, but to be honest, at least in my experience, this gun doesn't particularly like anything above 145 or 147 grain. So you can go higher, but you're really not going to see a whole lot of benefit there, because unlike the Tavor, like, this thing doesn't really have a very aggressive twist rate. And to be honest, it doesn't really need it, because the length of the barrel definitely helps to compensate a little bit for that. But yeah, you're definitely going to be getting a little more twist on that projectile with those 4 extra inches, a little tiny bit more distance, a little more carry. So I decided I'm going to be doing some PRS with this thing, and as a result, that's why I chose to go with the longer barrel. Now, these are cold hammer forged, and they are absolutely rock solid. They're actually quite thick. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that is like a heavy-duty bull barrel. It feels like it, but it does definitely, you know, it feels like it's not the thickest thing out there, which is actually kind of nice, because this thing's already quite heavy. Like, it's got quite a lot of heft to it. But that being said, you know, TIKKA and SACO, the company, of course, that owns TIKKA, and this is all made in the same factory in Finland, their tolerances are so incredibly tight, their QC so incredibly good, that if they think that this barrel that they've put together for this firearm is adequate to get this thing shooting out to the distances that it's rated for, then, you know, I trust them. Like, they know what they're doing. These guys make great guns. They have 1 MOA guarantees out of the factory, where you can pretty much use the cheapest ammo you can find, and you'll probably still get within that, if not close to that, without really any tinkering, which is just absolutely bonkers when you think about it. And when you look at all the different features and sort of additions to this rifle that we see here, above and beyond the stuff that's available on the competitor rifles, like, it's honestly quite impressive for what it is. But anyway, I'm going to stop drooling all over myself now. That's the barrel. Let's go ahead and move on to the forend. All right, so very quickly about the forend here. The forend is very modular. It's really quite nice. As you can see, we do have a Magpul bipod here. This is M-LOK, of course, because it's Magpul. Of course, they do make other stuff, and you can adapt things here very well as well. You can get all sorts of adapters and stuff off of Amazon. Maybe I'll actually link a couple if you guys are interested. There's probably quite a number of them all over Amazon and stuff like that. But that being said, there's a ton of modularity on here. So first of all, on the very top, you get the Picatinny rails. It's your standard mil-spec 1913 pick rail, all the way. It goes all the way here, basically, where the receiver starts, and then it continues further on the receiver. Now, this isn't a single rail, so to speak. You have the receiver, which has the rail on it, and then you've got the forend, which is bolted to the receiver with a few bolts here, and that just continues on. And this is actually the reason why I decided to get a cantilever mount here for my Vortex Venom 5-25 by 54. This optic we will do a review on, so if you'd like to kind of see that in the future at some point, do subscribe. It does help the channel a lot. But that being said, yeah, I did want to get a cantilever on here, and the reason for that is because if I was using regular scope rings, I may have had to move this maybe a little bit more forward and have one of those scope rings resting on the inner part of this first part of the pick rail that's actually part of the forend. You never want to do that. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why this should ever come apart. It is absolutely rock solid, but on any firearm, you don't ever want to split your rings, because essentially what you're doing there is you're asking for trouble. If there's any kind of looseness in here, if you ever develop something where the bolts kind of start coming loose a little bit and you get even a tiny little bit of creak there, that could be enough over the course of 100, 200 plus yards or meters, whatever you shoot at, to make a considerable difference in your aim, and you don't want to take that chance. So I needed to have this forward a little bit in order to have a good point of aim here to get my my eye relief sorted out. And so as a result of that, and wanting to stay on the actual rail that's part of the receiver on both ends, I decided to get that cantilever mount to kind of push that forward a little bit, but still be on the rail. I'm sorry for that little divergence there. I just wanted to explain that because that is very important. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth in a future video. But in any case, on the actual receiver, not the receiver, this is the forend, we have 45-degree M-lock slots here, and we do have that mirrored perfectly on the other side as well. We've got a bunch pretty much all the way down the forend here. We've got some more canted here at a 45-degree angle pointing down, and we've got some more on the bottom, and they're running pretty much right up until, well, the bottom one ends like right there. Which is actually amazing. So you can have a number of different accessories that you can put on here. Now I imagine you're probably not going to be putting on a vertical grip on this thing unless you're just a complete badass, which, hey, you might very well be. But I've just got my bipod on here on the very last M-lock slot there, and that works for me. And of course, if you are more specialized, you can put other stuff here in front of your optic. There's plenty of space, so whether you're one of those night vision guys, or maybe you need some thermal sights for whatever reason, you can do that. You've got plenty of space up here, laser modules, whatever you want. And then of course you've got M-lock literally all over the place, which again, you can adapt that to Picatinny or Keymod if you really want it to be crazy. So that is pretty much the forend here. Now again, it does come off quite easily if you want to get into your receiver, your trigger, and all that stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Then yeah, it's fairly easy to take apart. It's a little bit more of a bit of work to get it done. It's not quite as easy. There's some steps that you got to follow. Just make sure you follow the steps in your manual and you should be fine. But it's a couple of bolts essentially that's holding this onto the receiver, so it's pretty straightforward. So that being said, let's go ahead and just talk about the receiver here, and we'll talk about the bolt and the trigger as well as the grip kind of all in the same section because, well, they're kind of all related. All right, boys, so next up is our upper and lower, and as I said, with our upper, we do have a really nice integral pick rail up here, so that's what I've got my 5-25 Vortex mounted on. Great optic, by the way, and again, I'll do a video on this at some point in the future, but yeah, really, really nice optic and really great for this rifle, so if you're looking for one, I definitely recommend these guys. But that being said, it's just such a nice feeling upper and lower here. You've got these beautiful lines and corners and edges, and it's very well defined, that it just looks super futuristic. It looks really, really cool. But the most important thing, and the stars of the show here, are going to be the action and the bolt, which is just literally the easiest thing in the world to operate. We'll talk about the bolt in a second here, and then of course our trigger, also very, very special. So let's first talk about the action itself. This is a 308, so technically a short action. I guess some people would call it a medium, but it's fairly short when you compare it against some of the bigger cartridges like 300 Win Mag, which I don't believe this is available in. But the bolt is exceptionally smooth, and so is the action. And I mean, it's literally just completely effortless. You can just do it with one finger if you wanted to. It's really, really nice. The bolt throw on this thing is actually quite short. It's only about 60 degrees. So again, very, very light, movement here required to get this thing to come out all the way. And what's nice is that because it's a short bolt throw, you don't really have to worry if you've got larger hands. Like for me, on some of my guns, like on my Bison, I have to be kind of careful because my Bison, although it does have a 70-degree throw, so it's still quite decent, right? But if I do this and just manhandle it, and I have my big thumb here on the other side of the handle, sometimes I'll end up getting really close to my optic. I'll like nudge my optic a little bit. And sometimes if my bipod isn't, you know, super secure, that might be enough force to kind of just tilt it a little bit, and that kind of causes issues and stuff. So for me, having this being 60 degrees is just really nice, because if I want to manhandle it, I can, and I don't have to worry about hitting my optic. But you're not going to need to do that, because literally just with one finger, that's all you need. It's just amazing. So as far as the bolt is concerned, I'll go ahead and take this out for you guys. Now, actually, one thing I wanted to mention before we take it out is we have a button here. We'll get to this. So I'll just open this up quickly because this does swivel around to the other side. But a lot of guys online are saying, well, this design kind of sucks because you have to open this up. Like you have to swing the buttstock out of the way in order to get the bolt out. And guys, no. TIKKA has thought of everything. So check this out. So you've got a little recess in here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try and punch in for you a little bit, but you've got a little recess in here, and you've got a bolt release on the other side. So I'm going to press that. Again, I'll show you what that looks like on the screen there. And when we pull the bolt back, you can see that the cap of the bolt actually goes, if I can get my hand out of the way, you see that? It just sits right in there. And then all you do is you take the bolt out, and you just swing it out like that. It's super, super easy. And to get it back in, exactly the same, just in reverse. You're just going to put it in there, lay it around, make sure it's obviously oriented the right way, and there you go. You're back in business. It's literally that simple. You never have to move this out of the way. Now, of course, you can, but the thing is, if you're set up on a rest and everything, and you're using this on a back bag, for example, or you've got like a little tiny rear tripod here on this little pick rail on the bottom, you don't want to have to move this, right? So you don't have to. Like, again, all you do, lift up the bolt, you got your bolt release right there, push in, and pull out. That's it. It's super simple. Now, since we've got the bolt out here, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about this, because this honestly is an amazing bolt. First of all, the handle is nice and big, giggity. So you can replace these if you want. For me, it's absolutely fine. It's very comfortable. It's got this matte black finish. It does kind of feel, I think it's metal. It definitely feels pretty solid. The cap might be plastic. I don't know. It's hard to say. You get a little bolt in there that you can use to remove this, which is really nice. So if you want to get something different, you can do that. The rear cap on this is all metal, and we've got two locking lugs. I don't know if you're able to see that well there. Try to kind of rotate that so you guys can see what that looks like. So there's two locking lugs on there. I thought there would be three, but there's only two. And again, if TIKKA believes that that is what's going to be fine for the rifle, then I absolutely trust them. And it's worked flawlessly. I've had this for a couple of months now and no issues. And you're probably wondering, like, why is the bolt black? I mean, it's nice that it's painted black, but it's not just painted black. It's coated with Teflon. And the Teflon is what makes it exceptionally smooth. Now you see I'm handling this with my hands. There's no oil on this thing, right? But if we were to put it back in, I mean, it's just so smooth. You don't need any oil on this thing. Of course, it is important to lube up the end here. So you do definitely want to get a little bit of oil here on your locking lugs and make sure that that is well lubricated. But to be honest, that's really as far as you need to go, because the Teflon coating there just makes it exceptionally smooth. Now, even without that, my T3X Lite, it had a very, very smooth action. But yeah, that is so buttery smooth, it's actually kind of wild. All right, fellas, next up is going to be the trigger, and the trigger is actually exceptional out of the factory. You can upgrade this if you want. If you're going to be doing competition shooting and stuff like that, you probably should upgrade it. But to be honest, if you're just going to be doing some shooting for yourself and just having some fun with this rifle, then there's really no need for it. It's a very, very solid two-stage trigger, fully adjustable from 2 to 4 pounds, and just really well built altogether. It's got a great feel to it. And what I mean about two-stage is we've got this cock now, and again, we have absolutely nothing in the magazine, and we've got absolutely nothing in the chamber there whatsoever. So we're pointing in a safe direction here just so I can show you what this looks like. So a two-stage trigger is one where you're going to have a little bit of initial take-up, you're going to have a block there, you're going to have a wall, and then once you put a little more pressure on there, you're going to be firing your round. But the reason why you want a two-stage trigger is because it gives you a lot of information as a shooter, especially somebody who's shooting PRS, precision rifle shooting, or long distance, or maybe both, right? And the information that it gives you is it's telling you when you can expect for that trigger pull to happen. Now on just regular old everyday rifles, and that doesn't mean that it's a bad rifle, but on my Bison, right, which is definitely not a PRS gun, even though it is set for 1.5 MOA accuracy out of the factory, which is quite nice. That one is a one-stage trigger, and while it is a Remington 700 Trigger Tech trigger, and it is very, very nice feeling, it is only one stage, which means that I have to rely on my muscle memory to tell me when that trigger is going to pop, right? With this, we don't really have that. We're going to go ahead and just rack this again real quick. I say rack like it's a pistol slide or something. And again, we've got that little bit of take up there. We just push, and it's not mushy. It's almost like a spring-loaded feel, so it doesn't feel mushy. It actually feels quite nice. You push, 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 and then you get to that wall, and now the gun is telling you, hey, buddy, you better be ready because any more pressure, and I'm spitting fire, right? And then you push, and then you get it. Right? So that is the benefit of having that dual stage trigger. It really gives you a lot of information as a shooter. It helps you to remain focused. It helps you to work on your trigger discipline. It really puts you in that right frame of mind for shooting long distance, precision targets. It's really, really nice to have. Now, could you get away with a one-stage trigger? You can, and a lot of guys actually prefer that for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I actually quite like two-stage triggers. This one did take me a little bit of time to get used to, but once I did, it was just a godsend because it's, again, a little bit of that extra feedback where the rifle is communicating with you in a way and telling you, hey, this is when we're going to fire, be ready. And you can use that time to prepare, to take a nice deep breath, to exhale, to relax yourself, to get yourself in the zone. And then you just fire. And then you just hit right in the middle of the paper, right? Every time. Yeah, well, then we wake up, right, guys? All right, so we're going to move on to the grip. The grip is actually really quite nice. I'm not going to spend too much time on the grip because we spent a lot of time on the bolt and the trigger, which are actually quite important, and you know, it's a good thing we spent a little extra time on there. But we've got the grip here. The grip is really nice. I'm going to try to get this maybe a little bit more this way here. And I'm going to go from the other side and hopefully not make too much noise on the microphone here. But that grip is really nice. If we get sort of a pseudo setup here, of course you're not going to be shooting like this. I'm just trying to kind of prop this up for the video. But this just feels really, really nice in the hand. As you're probably going to be able to see in there, we have a nice little groove here. That groove is where you're going to be resting your middle finger. So if you've got larger hands, this grip is perfect for you. If you have smaller hands, that might still work, but the great thing is these are standard AR grips. So you can replace them by removing the plate on the bottom and just taking out the bolt and putting on whatever suits your size. Now we do have some nice grooves or some texture here on the front as well, and we do have texture on the back. So when you put your hand around this, it's going to be solid and it's going to feel great. It's all rubber, all over molded, just feels really, really nice in the hand. And especially if you're wearing gloves, you know, that feels extremely planted. So it's not going to move anywhere. It is a nice size grip. I'm really glad that TIKKA decided to put a nice big fat grip in there. I mean, it's kind of a big rifle as well. So yeah, it just kind of makes sense. But I like it. And again, you can replace it if you want. If you're somebody who doesn't have massive gorilla hands like I do, then yeah, you could probably get this thing swapped out for something a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit more contoured and a little bit more comfortable. But as far as grips go, this one is really good. I mean, they could have just stuck on your standard, you know, Magpul grip made out of plastic and called it a day, but they didn't do that, which is great. However, they did do something I didn't like, which we're going to get to next. All right, fellas, next up is going to be the buttstock here, and we'll talk about it, as usual, from the front to the back. There's a lot of things here that I like about it. There's one thing that I just absolutely hate, and I wish that TIKKA would change in a potential A2 at some point in the future. So the thing that I really love about it is this joint right here. It's a solid metal joint, and I mean, this thing is just not going anywhere. Like, I'm literally bouncing the whole table around around the dining room here by moving this around, because that's how solid this is. It feels absolutely amazing. There's a button here that you push to get this thing out of the way. It doesn't just flop around like you got to put a little bit of pressure on there. It's got just the right amount of pressure where it's not going to be too difficult to move it out of the way, but it's also not going to move on its own. Now, when you stick it into the other side, which I'll show you what that looks like, right? That is where it stays. And if we turn this way and we just kind of mess around with it, it's not going anywhere. This thing is absolutely rock solid, and I love that. And what's wild is, unlike other firearms, you don't have anything on this side that's holding it on the buttstock end. Like, there's nothing there. This is all the joint. That's all it is. So you press that button, and then you're back in action again. Absolutely phenomenal design. I love this thing. It's one of my favorite features of the gun. It allows you to store this thing in a much more compact way. It allows you to transport it in a much more compact way. You can put this thing in a smaller case than would otherwise be able to accommodate the length of this thing, because it's a long boy. And yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. You're probably not going to need to use it every day or very often, but the fact that you have that here, it's just great. Thank you, TIKKA. You guys did a great job with that. Moving right along, we've got this cheek riser here. Now, what's nice is that this is actually not made out of metal, like a lot of the other stuff on the gun are. This is just a nice, soft touch plastic. You've got some very, very small grooves on here. It's a little bit of texture just to give you a little bit of grip on your cheek when you're in there. And you've got some adjustment points here. So you've got one right there, and you've got one right there. Now, I'm not going to undo both of them, but I'll show you what this looks like if I can actually even undo the first one. So there you go. You just turn that. You turn the other one out, you make your adjustments, and then you just turn it again nice and tight. These are actually made out of plastic or polymer, but they do feel very solid and sturdy, and I've not had any issues with that myself. Now, what's really nice about this is that, again, you've got that opening here for your bolt. So if you want to take that bolt out again, you know, that's going to fit right into that little groove, and you're never going to have to move this out of the way. So that means if you need to take out your bolt in the middle of a shooting session, maybe somebody calls a ceasefire, you want to take your bolt out so that you can inspect your bore on the way back to the bench, or for whatever other reason you want to take your bolt out, it's going to be super easy, and you never have to worry about, you know, moving this out of the way. Mind you, you can, but you don't have to, and that is a really nice thing about that. Now, as for the cheek riser itself, I think that TIKKA probably missed an opportunity here. It's not really a big deal, but I think in maybe a premium upgrade or something like that, they could put some leather or some soft cloth or material on here or something like that. Canada is a pretty cold place. So is Finland, after all, right? So I think having a nice little upgrade here on this cheek riser would be kind of cool. It'd be nice to have like a little leather piece or some kind of cloth or something else just to make it feel nice and soft on your face. Now, of course, leather is also going to give you that grip, right? So there's no reason really not to have it, and it definitely would have been nice to see at least as an upgrade. Of course, it would have been amazing to see just tossed in, but as somebody who shoots a lot out in the cold, that's something that I just kind of want to toss in as an upgrade that I probably would have liked to have seen. But that being said, all of this is all completely made out of metal. It feels really nice. Down here we do have like a little tiny integrated pick rail. I don't believe you can actually take this off, although it looks like it's a different color, so I might be wrong here, but anyway, it's integrated into the bottom here. And so for those of you guys who are PRS, long distance shooters, you're definitely going to want to utilize this for some kind of like rear bipod or tripod or something like that as an additional support to make sure that you are nice and on target. So really nice for them to include that here. I don't use it personally myself. I usually have one of those little Caldwell bags. I'll link that in the description if you want to have a look. If you're shooting PRS, you should at the very least have a rear bag, especially if you've just got a front bipod here, or potentially have both of them. They're very nice to use, very comfortable, and again, they're not sponsors or anything, but this is just stuff that I like to use and that I bought with my own money. So if you want to get yourself a bag for this, you probably should, at least the rear bag, and I'll link a couple down there in the description. So moving further along to the back, there's a lot of good here, but there's one thing that just really absolutely irritates the absolute hell out of me. And the first good thing is that the rear butt pad here is a very nice, dense sort of rubber. Like, it feels really, really good. There's enough give there where it feels comfortable to shoot this thing all day without getting a purple shoulder. However, there are some plates in here that you may or may not be able to see. And this is the part of the design that really irks me. I just have no idea how a company like TIKKA, owned and operated by Sako, one of the most renowned rifle manufacturers in the world, can come up with a gorgeous rifle like this, in this color, with these materials, with that muzzle brake and that barrel, and this gorgeous front end, and this badass receiver, and this amazing factory trigger, and this comfortable grip, and this beautiful design on the butt pad, and just fail so miserably in this. This is what I mean, okay? So instead of having an adjustment here, like a lot of other similar rifles do, where you just unscrew something, kind of like here, or you push a button, and then you've got your adjustment for your length of pull. No, you need tools, you need bolts, and yes, they give you both in the box, but it's like, TIKKA, why? Why even? Like, everything else is so nice, and yet you have to undo the 2 bolts here to change your length of pull, which is just absolute nonsense. So they give you a bunch of extra pads or extra spacers here. The spacers are made of polymer. They're not bad quality, but it's just the extra work that you need to do to get this thing shorter or longer. For example, I shoot with my wife as often as I possibly can. She enjoys this rifle and many of my other rifles. And so she's a bit of a smaller girl, obviously. She's not as big as I am, and she has different dimensions. And so because of that, she needs to adjust the firearm to her liking as much as she possibly can. Obviously, we can't really move the scope around too much, but I digress. So being able to adjust this, for example, very quickly is awesome. But not being able to adjust this and bring it in a little closer without the use of tools and extra time is a real pain in the ass, and I hate that. So essentially what you need to do is that there's 2 bolts in here. You got to take the bolts out, and you have to be careful because TIKKA says in the manual that you might, aggravate the rubber here. You might maybe tear or bother the rubber to the point where it damages the butt pad here. So you should put a little warm soapy water in the holes there to lubricate it. So you're lubricating your butt pad first, giggity, and then you're taking the bolts out, and then you're putting however many spacers or however few spacers you need, and you're putting that stuff back on. Now here's the really cool thing, and this is why this blows my mind, is that TIKKA has gone so far as to literally give you a specific length of bolt, a pair of bolts, for each combination of however many spacers you want here, which is just actually wild if you think about it. And this is why I'm so upset, because this is so dumb. They literally give you a specific number of bolts in the specific length required if you just want 1 spacer. Or maybe you want 2. Well, they got a set of bolts for that too. If you want 4 spacers, they got a set of bolts for that too. The exact length for the specific number of spacers that you want. So they have gone through that amount of trouble to put that much thought into that. But they didn't just put like a little gear system on here where you could just be like, bloop, okay, I've adjusted my length of pull. Come on, guys. Please, for the love of God, we need an upgrade to this. This is crazy. You guys are amazing. You make amazing rifles, and you did this. This is a travesty, okay? Sorry for taking so much of your time just complaining and bitching and moaning about this, but really, this is a high caliber rifle, and I'm not talking about the actual projectile. This is a very expensive piece of kit, okay? And a lot of people are not going to have access to this, and the people that do are not going to want to deal with this kind of bullshit. I don't. And I'm pretty sure my viewers don't either. So, to the viewers, I want to let you guys know that is my only gripe on this firearm. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now, thankfully, once you've got it set up to how it is for you, and especially if you don't share your rifle with anybody, then absolutely, you're fine, you're good to go. It's a great butt pad, nice and full metal here, and it's just very sturdy. It feels nice, and it's so pleasant to shoot. It's just amazing. But again, if you want to change this, it's just such a pain in the ass. So I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time just bitching about this, but I needed you to know, because that is one thing I really hate about this. Now, the rest of the rifle, absolutely magnificent. And I'm just going to get into here at this point whether I think that you should buy this rifle. And the short answer is yes. Just go out right now. Don't wait for a sale. It doesn't matter. Spend the money. Go get a good optic. We'll do a review on this in the future, so make sure to subscribe. But just go get it. Like, it's a fucking great gun. It shoots TACs. Literally, it's in the name, right? It shoots TACs. It's so accurate. It's so comfortable. It's super modular. It's just a lot of fun. And I mean, it looks completely badass. So you're definitely going to be raising some eyebrows at the bench. Of course, that's not the only reason that you should buy this for, but if you get the money, then hey, why not? So that's going to wrap up the review. Thank you so very much for watching. We're going to get into the announcements now, so if you want to stick around, please do. You're going to like what you hear. But if you've got stuff to do and I've already taken up enough of your time, I apologize and sincerely thank you for your time. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. And until then, happy shooting. All right, you're still here. Good. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. See, you guys are what makes this channel tick, really. You know, you guys are the the few but the devoted. I love you guys. I appreciate you. So let's go ahead and talk. Well, of course, we'll still leave the rifle here out on the table. But I want to talk to you a little bit briefly about two things that we've got going on. So the first thing is that our merch shop has actually moved on the back end. I spent about half a week working my ass off from morning to night. Yes, I actually got up in the morning. I know, pretty amazing. But I worked my absolute ass off because essentially what I had to do was we switched providers. So the one that we had before was stationed in Florida in the US, which is great because about 65-70% of our viewership is actually in the US. So thank you, brothers and sisters from the South. We appreciate you guys, and you can be honorary Canadian operators any time of the day. But we went with the guys in Florida because they had excellent reviews, but also because the majority of the folks that were watching the channel were from there. So I figured, okay, we'll cater a little bit more to that market, make it a little easier for the majority of folks to get stuff. But we don't have to do that anymore. And the reason why we don't is because I found a new provider that allows for us to ship from the country of origin to the country of origin, if that makes any sense. So if you are now in Canada, you're not going to have to worry about your stuff having to cross the border and waiting 2 months for a t-shirt and delays and ridiculous shipping costs, because the provider that we have now ships from Canada if you're in Canada, from the US if you're in the US, from Europe if you're in Europe, from Asia if you're in Asia, and so on. So they have shipping centers all over the world, and they are able to help fulfill our merch store orders direct in the country of origin. So there's no international shipping, there's no bullshit at the border, there's no delays, and it's not going to take you too much to get a t-shirt that you're going to have to pay 20 bucks to get shipped to begin with. That took a lot of work because there was a lot of research involved in that, but there was also a lot of physical work because we had to migrate. I had to migrate one product at a time when we got like 20 products on the store right now, different variations, and we'll continue to have more, including this right here, the legislation or education, not legislation t-shirt. But to make this as short as I can make it, basically I had to migrate everything one by one, and it just took a very long time. That was part of the reason why this video was as delayed as it was. So again, I apologize to you profusely, but the new store is set up. There is nothing different on the front end. You can still get to it by going to CanadianOperator.ca, but now everything on the back end has been changed, and it's a lot more Canada friendly. In fact, it's a lot more world friendly. No matter where you are, you're going to be able to get your stuff from Canadian Operator that much sooner with that much less shipping cost, and you're going to be able to support the channel even more as a result of that. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Now, for the second thing, it's not going to take so much time to explain, but one of our members on Discord, they had an idea where we should give away the Tesla borescope that I reviewed in the, I think it was the last video. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. It's up there. But in any case, we're going to be giving that away as part of a raffle. Now, I wasn't even going to do that in the beginning because I actually really like this borescope. It's a really dope piece of kit, and it's actually kind of expensive. So I wanted to keep it for my own use. But then one of our guys, Robbie, in Discord, he had an idea, and he goes, well, why don't we just do a raffle for the channel? It'll help to make a little bit of money for the channel to kind of grow things and pay for equipment and other stuff. And as a result of that, we can also just, buy some stickers or whatever, and whoever wins it will win it, and they'll get it shipped to them. And I said, wow, that's a great idea. So that's what we did. So I will leave a link to the sticker down below. It's a limited edition plaid sticker that I created myself. And again, it'll ship from Canada if you're in Canada, and anywhere else around the world, depending on where you are. And every one of these stickers is going to be an entry into the raffle. There's a limited amount. There's only 24 left as of the filming of this video. And so you can buy as many or as few as you like. It will really help to support the channel a lot. You'll get a very dope looking sticker for your safe or whatever, your gun bag or whatever, what have you. But aside from supporting the channel, it's also going to potentially allow you to win a very expensive piece of kit for no less than 10 bucks if you're the lucky winner. So you can buy as many as you like. Every sticker sold is an entry. We only have 24 left. And so if you want to go and check that out and help support the channel a little bit, you can do so down below. I'll leave the link there. Of course, as always, thank you so very much for watching. I know that was a bit of a rant. If you'd like to help support the channel as usual, without any extra charge, of course, to you, you can use the like button. Make sure to become a subscriber with notifications turned on. There's a super thanks button under the video if you want to buy me a coffee or a beer. It's your choice. And of course, there are some Amazon links in a lot of my long form videos. They won't cost you anything extra, but they do help the channel as well. So if you're shopping on Amazon, really appreciate that. Okay. Guys, thank you so much. This is the actual end of the video. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending the time. And again, I am so sorry for taking so long to make this video. We shot it like 2 days ago, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it turned out. The lighting was off and everything, and I was like, you know what, I just need to do this again. So thank you. I'm sorry for the delay. We're going to be back on a more regular schedule now. I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, actually, fuck it. Happy shooting.